Not this moment. Episode 2, The Web of Secrets. A quick disclaimer, this is purely fictional and it is the intellectual property of Uche Oba. Please like the video, comment and share. Also subscribe to the channel. The night was still. In the quiet glow of his study lamp, Tony sat motionless behind his mahogany desk, his gaze fixed on nothing. Papers lay scattered before him, but his mind was far away, tangled in thoughts darker than the shadows around him. Upstairs, Ella sat on the edge of her bed, her mind a battlefield. She had to find a way to handle Tony and Jenepher without revealing her true identity in Solomon's case. One wrong step, and everything she'd built could crumble. Her heart pounded as she recalled Solomon's will, the secrets she buried, and the lies that tied them all together. Meanwhile, Tony's thoughts drifted to the past, to a time when life was simpler, when deception was just a game. He met Rose through Ella. Back then, he and Ella were only friends, inseparable, playful, and free. Tony was a first-year student at the university, while Ella and her friends, Rose and Jenepher, were still in SS2. They admired him, the charming campus boy with sharp dreams and easy laughter. Ella was ambitious, Rose was beautiful, and Jenepher, always the wise one. Tony had felt drawn to Ella first, not out of passion, but strategy. She was from a wealthy, well-connected family. Having her meant stability, opportunities, doors that would open with a simple phone call. And when she gained admission into his university, Tony sealed his decision. She was the one to keep. But Rose was another story. Beautiful, daring, and unpredictable. Her charm was magnetic, her emotions wild. She fascinated Tony in a way Ella never could. He wanted her. At first, only for pleasure. But the more he spent time with her, the more he realized something strange. Whenever Rose was close, things worked in his favor. Opportunities appeared. His luck changed. He began to believe she was a secret key to his success. So he pressed for a covenant, a bond that would tie them beyond emotion. Something spiritual, unbreakable. Rose resisted, but his persistence and flattery wore her down. She accepted, thinking it was a symbol of love, not manipulation. She never knew Ella and Tony had become more than friends. Tony told her it was safer to keep their affair secret. Friends can be jealous, he said, and she believed him. When Martins entered Rose's life, Tony encouraged it. He pretended to support her happiness, convincing her to accept Martin's affection. Deep down, he knew he was freeing himself to marry Ella, the woman with influence and wealth. Rose, who was motherless and struggling, had dreams of becoming a nurse, but Tony believed those dreams had died with her mother. He married Ella without guilt, thinking Rose would fade into the past. He was wrong. Martins turned out to be wealthier than expected. He sponsored Rose's studies abroad, and when her life regained direction, Tony returned, charming as ever, whispering old promises, rekindling forbidden flames. Rose, weak to his words, yielded. Their secret affair resumed. Through it all, Tony maintained control. Rose obeyed him, trusted him, even when it hurt. But now, things were changing. She was successful, independent, and married to a man Tony could no longer manipulate easily. Tony wanted her back, as a secret wife. He wanted to keep Ella, too. His greed was boundless. But there was a problem. Rose's baby wasn't his. He needed a plan, a trigger. Something that would turn Rose's marriage upside down and bring her back under his control. Martin's old affair with his secretary came to mind. Tony had no proof, but rumors were enough to start chaos. If he could shake Rose's faith in her husband, she would turn to him again. He would use emotional blackmail, and if that failed, he'd dig for evidence. But first, he needs to meet Rose privately. He wanted to test her boldness. As they say, phone conversations are always different from physical interactions. Leaning back in his chair, Tony reached for his phone and dialed Rose's number.
Tony, what is it this time?
I've been thinking about us, Rose. About everything we've shared. I miss you. I know things got heated, but breaking the covenant shouldn't happen in a hurry. Otherwise, we will make mistakes. Let's talk. Privately. Just us.
Tony, I was rude before. I'm sorry. Maybe we should talk. I'll see you tomorrow.
They exchanged a few affectionate words, harmless to a stranger's ear but heavy with history. When the call ended, Tony smiled, confident his charm still held power. Tomorrow he would see her. Tomorrow he would begin to reclaim what he thought was his. Upstairs, Ella's mind was racing. She had gone through Solomon's will again and found her worst fear confirmed. The assets were willed to the children, not her. But as their mother, she had authority to manage them until they came of age. That was her shield, her survival. If Jenepher went to court to uncover the children's identities, Ella would argue they were minors, that exposing them could endanger their lives. Meanwhile, she planned to have a discreet firm manage the properties so her name stayed off every record. Kings and Uche, she needed them loyal. She would buy them if she had to, offer them deals too sweet to resist. But what if they turned against her? What if the court ruled against her? She needed Tony. He was greedy for wealth, always had been. If she could convince him that the children were his, he would protect her, not expose her. After all, back in their university days, it was Tony who encouraged her to manipulate Solomon for money. He never cared about the cost. Ella knew she has to buy the 3 biggest hospitals in the city to her side to be able to do the job. As Ella scribbled rough notes of her plan, her phone buzzed. It was Jenepher.
Ella, I'd like you to come over tomorrow afternoon. There's something we need to discuss.
Ella froze. Jenepher's voice had that careful tone that made her uneasy. Polite, but heavy with meaning.
Tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow.
When the call ended, Ella sat in silence, staring into space. Tomorrow was beginning to look like a dangerous day for everyone. Back in Solomon's mansion, the silence was thick enough to weigh on the walls. Jenepher sat on the long cream sofa in the living room, staring at the open folder on the table before her, Solomon's will. The house felt strange now, colder than usual, as though it too grieved with secrets. Her hands trembled. She still couldn't believe what she had read. Solomon had another woman. Not just a side chick, but another wife. She leaned back, closing her eyes, and the memories came flooding in. She remembered meeting Chief Uche, the powerful man whose construction company would become the backbone of Solomon's firm. Solomon had failed to secure a crucial contract, and Jenepher, believing she could fix anything, decided to act. She reached out to Chief Uche privately. One thing led to another, and before dawn, Jenepher had crossed a line she could never uncross. It was passion, wild, unexpected, and real. When she later discovered she was pregnant, she knew instantly that the child was not Solomon's. In a strange twist, that very pregnancy seemed to bind Chief Uche closer to Solomon's success. Chief Uche doubled his investment in Solomon's company. To the world, he was Solomon's greatest ally. But Jenepher knew the truth. He was protecting his own blood. When Solomon discouraged her from being more involved in the business, she began planting the idea of a will. It was her insurance, a way to protect herself and her children, especially the first son, whose real identity only she knew. Slowly, she convinced him that it was the responsible thing to do, to follow Igbo tradition by willing his properties to their first son. Solomon finally agreed. But a few days before his death, Solomon told her he had changed his lawyer. She didn't question him. She never asked to see the new will. And now, he was gone. Her eyes returned to the document on the table. Her heart thudded as she read on. The children's names were there, all except one, her first son. The omission hit her like a slap. Solomon had carefully left out the boy who had once been his pride. Her breath caught. Did Solomon know? Had he done a DNA test behind her back? No. She had to be smart, calculated, careful. She stood slowly, pacing across the room. She looked around at the vast mansion, the luxury she had fought so hard to preserve. None of it could fall into another woman's hands. Never. As she reached for her phone, her reflection caught her eye. The woman staring back at her was not weak. She was strategic, determined, and dangerous when cornered.
Hello, my dear, she said softly. Can you both come over tomorrow afternoon? There's something I need to discuss with you.
When she hung up, she exhaled. The game had begun again. Tomorrow would decide who truly held the power behind Solomon's name. A quick disclaimer. This is purely fictional, and it is the intellectual property of Azubuike Oba. Please, like the video, comment, and share. Also subscribe to the channel.